And I want to take a quick survey of executive power for those that are watching from home, and hope that my old con law professor is watching from whatever nudist colony he retired to. A president can veto legislation for any reason or no reason. A president can, through his or her attorney general, fail to defend the constitutionality of a law or portion thereof, even if that same president signed the very law into existence. So, Mr. Schroeder, it seems to me that if you like part of a law, enforce it. If you don't enforce the rest. You use the phrase good faith. I want to ask you this. What is the mandatory minimum for possession of 5 grams of cocaine base?
I don't know, Congressman.
It's 5 years, and it's set by statute. So the judicial branch has to follow that. A judicial branch would never entertain the thought of saying, even though there's a mandatory minimum, we're going to ignore it. So tell me how the Attorney General can.
Well, Congressman, I think a lot of the discussion about non-enforcement of the law is focusing too much on the donut hole and not enough on the donut.
With all due respect, Professor, I am asking, you talked about immigration and you talked about health care. I'm talking about mandatory minimums. They could not be more clear. The legislative branch has the power to set the minimum and the maximum. And rather than this Attorney General doing what he should have done, which is say, you know what, I disagree with the law, I'm not going to enforce any narcotics laws because all 50 states have concurrent jurisdiction in narcotics laws. He wants the best of all worlds. He's going to continue to prosecute narcotics cases, just not tell the court what the drug amount is, thereby getting around the law. How does he do that?
Congressman, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that decision that the Attorney General made that you're describing.
Well, trust me, even though I'm a lawyer, trust me, he has said he is not going to inform the courts anymore about the drug amount because he disagrees with mandatory minimums. How is that the proper exercise of prosecutorial discretion? That is rewriting the law, Professor.
Congressman, I would very much like to be able to answer your question. I'm not going to be able to answer it until I look at the specifics of the situation. I just apologize for not being that thoroughly versed on this particular issue.
All right, well, let me ask Professor Turley. If he can do that with drug laws, why can't he do it with election laws?
Well, I think that really does hit the nail on the head. I mean, the problem with the administration's argument is that it just simply proves too much. It would effectively make all of the separation of powers principles discretionary. And I don't see how you could possibly ascribe that purpose to a group of men who were remarkably pragmatic and practical. These are people that spend a lot of time trying to create balances and checks between the branches. This is the last group of people that would say, you know, we have this massive apparatus in Article 1 and Article 2 and Article 3, but in the end, it really will come down to the president making this decision. These are the last people that would say that.
I think the court signaled that in Raines. The court said this in dicta. We attach some importance to the fact that the House has not authorized this group to represent them, which I read to mean that perhaps if the House does authorize a group to represent them, and that's in Raines, not in Coleman. I know I'm almost out of time, Mr. Chairman. Can I ask Professor Foley one question? It's quick, I promise.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 additional minute.
What happens if there is a technical violation of Miranda, even though you got the right person, you know they committed the crime, but the police just failed to say, you know what, you can stop answering questions anytime you want. What's the remedy for that for those watching at home?
The exclusionary rule.
Right. Even though we've got the right person, in other words, to Professor Turley's point, I like the policy, but the process you used is wrong. And it's the same with the Fourth Amendment, and it's the same with the Fifth Amendment. We're going to kick out evidence, and we're even going to let people we know are guilty go because we value process, and the end does not justify the means. So to your point, Professor Turley, that you agree with the policy, but you dispute the method by which this administration is achieving it, I salute you, and I wish more of my colleagues cared enough.
We will make America great again.